Thank you very much. Are you nervous in the front row? No? Me neither, it's fine. So yeah, this is obviously me. I'm the technical co-founder at Wavebox, and we are a browser. But today I'm here to talk to you about browser choice. So I'm here on behalf of the Browser Choice Alliance, and I'm here to warn you that we're going back to the browser wars. We all know how much of a mess that was. And why is this happening? Well, we've got some operating systems that are restricting user choice and using their gatekeeper position to kind of lock you into a browser and keep pestering you. So I'm here to kind of bring awareness about this and kind of tell you what you can do about it and kind of how we can make the web a better place once again. So let's take a look at the browser ecosystem. You've kind of got this tiered approach. You've got these tier 1 browsers along the top, where you might have browsers that have an OS, or maybe they have their own rendering engine. And then you've got the smaller tier 2 browsers, as you can see, shameless plug for Wavebox there, who maybe offer more personalized experiences or something different that users want. Maybe it's more privacy and more of these things. And what we find is when you have predatory behavior from some of the big browsers, it can really kind of squash the smaller ones as well as kind of impacting what happens in tier 1. So it's kind of a bit of a David versus Goliath problem here. So obviously the operating system I'm talking about is Windows and Edge. And the question kind of to ask is, should Microsoft leverage their Windows dominance to kind of push Edge on users and really limit user choice? Because all the browsers fight for the open web. You know, we all fight for open standards. We all fight to make the web a better place. But Microsoft, in many ways, are trying to strangle it from the bottom up by locking you back into Edge. And we've already seen this on some different platforms. So let's take a look at some others. Let's take a look at iOS. You might not realize it, but all the browsers are locked to the same rendering engine. So it's all Safari under the hood. It's all WebKit. And your Chrome, your Firefox, and so forth are all skins on top of it. And people are already taking issue about this. You know, Safari is sometimes slow, adding new proposed APIs. There's show-stopping bugs. We've seen some with IndexedDB, which is slowly the adoption of that. And it means that you don't really have an option. You don't have a choice. You have to use Safari. This is changing in the EU. They have this year allowed other rendering engines on iOS, but not here in the UK or anywhere else. And if we think back a little bit further, we can think back to Internet Explorer 6. I'm sure most of you remember it. It pretty much crippled the web at one point because we all had to use lovely hacks like this to include IE6 style sheets, which we can now remove thanks to Anna's talk. And you know, we had all these hacks. We had jQuery. It's not a query language. It was this massive thing that just kind of helped make the web a more easy to work with place. And you know, this was celebrated on its demise. We don't want to get back to a point where we're here again. So I guess the question is Microsoft trying to restrict user choice? So, you know, we've started to see some of these tactics, and we've started to reach out to some of our friends in the industry who make other browsers, and they kind of said, yeah, look, our users are saying the same thing. You know, we're starting to see this really pushing us on Edge. What's going on? So, like all good guys in the movies, we decided to build an alliance, and that is the Browser Choice Alliance. So we're basically an industry response to this to kind of give users a fair and even playing field. We want users to be able to choose their browser. If they choose one, we want them to stick with it. You know, we don't want them to be pestered unnecessarily. We want those choices to be respected. And you know, we want to keep the web open and innovative. If there's one browser that works better because it's got a better feature set, we want users to be free to choose that browser based on its features, not because it's been mandated. So let's have a look at some of these things that Microsoft are doing. So let's take a look at this typical user journey. I'm going to thank my AI created videos here. You know, they get their new laptop, they open it up, they look very happy, and most laptops will ship with Windows and Edge and Bing. They'll open it up, and you know, we'll start to see some of these gatekeeper behaviors, the dark patterns that they're kind of put through, and the user choices that are just blatantly disregarded. So they already want a new browser. Let's say they don't want to use Edge. So they search in Bing on Edge. And what they're presented with is all of these big banners and ads, which some are designed to look like parts of the OS. Others are kind of designed to kind of like keep you in Edge. And I mean, the main thing is that everything that you're searching for is below the fold. And it's kind of like spot the button for the download that you want. You know, it's kind of deceptive by design in that you're kind of forced to look beyond what's above the fold. And let's say you do download your favorite browser and you decide that, hey, I want to set it as my default. If you're in Edge, you're really lucky because you can just press this one big blue button from within Edge and it will set Edge as your default browser and you're done. If you're another browser, you have to take them to settings. And then from settings, you have to let the user kind of find the default, make default button, which is actually hidden in this screenshot for some reason, but it is just off the top there. It's not highlighted in blue or anything. And then once they do this, Windows only changes some of the defaults, leaves Edge as the default for most of them. And this, on the flip side, if your Edge doesn't do any of this, it just changes everything straight away. So if you're my mum, you're kind of phoning me up and saying, hey, what's happening? Even if you do get past that screen and you finally set your default browser to Wavebox because it's your favorite, Microsoft still ignores your choice. If you're using something like Teams or Copilot and you click on a link, hey, it's just going to open in Edge again. And it just completely ignores what you're doing. And once you are in Edge, what does Edge do? Hey, let's set your default browser. So we're back to Edge again. And beyond that, we've kind of got this thing about Windows will update itself. You know how important it is to apply updates and to stay on top of security fixes. But what happens at the end of an update is you see a screen like this one with the big blue continue button. Clicking that does a bunch of things, including setting Edge as your default. I was like, come on, how many times have I got to tell you? Don't do that, please. And this green screenshot down the bottom was one that actually popped up as I was making these slides just a couple of days ago about, hey, some browser has messed up your default browser setting for some reason, which I'm not sure how it managed to do that. But hey, we've reset it to Edge just so that you're safe. It's like, yeah, come on. Back through the window again. Okay, fine. So what effect does this have on users? Because not all users are technically savvy. And thanks to my Edge man, tries to pull the rug and just kind of fudges it a bit. But you get the idea. He's pulling the rug out from our users. The OS should be trusted. We don't want the browser. Okay, it just repeats forever, but fine. We don't want the browser, trying to push Edge and using their gatekeeper position to do this. We want the browser to be this gatekeeper for us. We want it to be there to protect us. If an app comes along and says, hey, I want to be your default browser, the OS should really just get in the way to say, this is going to happen, do you want to do it or not? Not, hey, look, you should be Edge all the time, come on. And we see Microsoft changing tactics on this all the time. We see different tactics in different regions, different tactics across different OS installs. And, it's just getting a bit tiresome. Like, please let me choose my default browser. The EU has started to work on this. And the DMA in the EU has started to kind of tell Microsoft, hey, look, you can't be doing this. But it's not happening in the UK. We're not part of the EU anymore. It's not happening in the US. It's not happening anywhere else in the world. And this is just the first step. But what it does show is Microsoft do know that this is a problem. And we also know that it's not a usability or technical reason. There isn't a reason why we can't change our default browser and kind of have a nice experience about it. And then more on, how does it affect us developers? I mean, this looks like me most nights, but this is it. Microsoft, let's put it on the line, they don't have the best record at, keeping up with web standards. They do have the whole Internet Explorer thing that did go on some time ago now, but who knows where we might end up. If they unfairly push Edge again and mandate it, are we going to be left in a position where they deprioritize it and they say, we don't need to work on web features anymore. The web is good as it is. You should install apps. And it means for us, it stifles our web development. It means that our web experiences get worse. We have to go back to adding all those hacks in for Internet Explorer 6 and IE7. Or, maybe it's Edge, whichever version, who knows. Although they may be trying to expand their market share against some of the other big players, for us smaller browsers, this can be really decimating. We kind of win our users over with their hearts and minds. Wavebox is a paid-for browser. Would you believe it? People actually pay for a browser in this day and age, I know. But we've already had to go through a really hard track to get a user to download it, try it, pay for it, decide they want to use it as their default, just for Microsoft to come along and say, yeah, we don't need to do that. So this is where the Browser Choice Alliance came in. It's an industry response for us to kind of respond to Microsoft doing this. We don't want preferential treatment. We just want a level playing field. We just want to be able to ask our users, hey, do you want to change your default browser and have that respected? We want to be able to compete on browser features. If one browser suddenly becomes much better because it supports the latest web standard or the latest feature, we want users to be able to, have the choice to switch and not be pestered over and over again to kind of have to go back to whichever one Windows is trying to mandate. Like I mentioned before, we have had some limited progress in the EU. We've actually had some meetings with Microsoft today, so there's part of the team out there with that. This is under the DMA, but it's kind of like they're not doing everything. They're not doing what they could do. And again, it's not in the UK. It's not here. It's not in the US. It's not in some of the biggest markets. It's only in one market at the moment. So this is what we want to do. We want to fight for a fairer web. If there are any browser vendors in the audience, reach out because we'd love you to join us because it is an industry response. It's not just one browser that wants this. Developers, spread awareness. Know that this is going on. You may be a Mac user and have no idea that Windows users are pestered over and over again every time Windows updates. And if you are in contact with regulators and the CMA, reach out to them. Tell them that this is an issue as well, because without this kind of industry response and pressure on them, they've got no incentive to do anything about it. So that is kind of the Browser Choice Alliance, which I'm here representing today. As I mentioned a few times, there is Wavebox as well. I'd love it if you tried it. Feel free to reach out on me on LinkedIn or GitHub or wherever. Yeah, thank you very much.